That's more annoying than being maxed out after 5 hours.
Yes.
I hate it because now it's Thursday. On Saturday, my weekly limits reset and I'm at 92%. What the fuck do I need to do? I just canceled my $100 Claude plan. With $100, I can take $20 Cursor, $20 Codex, $20 Claude, and I still have $40 left. Coding an app is the new starting a podcast. We are 3 dudes. We just started a podcast.
It's incredibly reckless in this world to not learn AI.
Everything is code. I recently realized everything is code. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night from wherever you're watching. This is episode 13 of the God Mode Pod, and again we have a full docket. Not as full as last time, because last time we had a record episode. It was a 2-hour episode, but also a record viewers. First time we hit 1,000 views. Hopefully this one does even better. We have the usual suspects, like always. We have OpenAI and Anthropic fighting. Then we have Elon joining the battle as well. We have Trump taking Elon with him to China. Another one on that plane was Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, after they hit $5.5 trillion in market cap, which is the first company that ever did that. And we also have Matt here, another friend of the pod, joining us today. Basically 3 vibe coders on one podcast. I think that's quite rare to find on YouTube, so definitely got to stay here. Welcome, Matt, to the God Mode Pod. We are excited to have you here. You said it's been a long time that you did a podcast. Are you excited?
I'm excited. Yeah, it's been like 5 or so years since I've done a podcast, so a little bit nervous as well. But yeah, excited to just nerd out about AI, really. Good to be here.
That's basically what you do every day. You create YouTube videos and nerd out about AI, or tell us a bit more. What have you been doing?
Exactly that. I've been getting really deep into video gen with AI. And not in terms of like the Sora video gen or like VO3 video gen, but like with remotion, with hyperframes. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, but like I think that is the next industry which is going to be massively disrupted, like software development has been disrupted in the last like year or so.
If you've been listening to the pod since day one, I remember in the first or second episode I say something like everything is code. I just realized everything is code. Oh, we even have this in our intro video. And Matt is actually the guy who made me realize this in our sauna sessions where we nerd out about AI basically every night. So yeah, that's everything is code. I highly believe in AI video editing. I've been hoping this would get to the point that it's actually useful for the past 2 years. It just is not there yet. But I feel like we're close, but we're always been close for getting this last 20% gap solved. Where are we now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like where we were, I think, with like GPT-3, where you could write code with GPT 3.5, but you have to like be in the editor and be like, hey, can you write me a JavaScript snippet to do this or that? And it gave you this code in line, and then you have to take it over to Visual Studio, where like it could do it, but it wasn't an environment and it wasn't a way in which, it's into a workflow. Now, obviously, we've got tools like Cursor and Codex, which make it like super easy to write code and write full applications. And I think that's what we're going to see with video editing, is that like it can do it now, but it's like the workflow, the intelligence is there with AI, but the workflow isn't yet there, but it's coming. I think by the end of 2026, we'll see some big changes in terms of video editing.
What's the final steps that still have to be taken to get that workflow done? Nobody done it yet.
I've been playing around building video editors, and I've built quite a lot of things with AI, and it's surprisingly hard, actually, to get everything working. I think this is coming. There's no real like hard boundary. I think it's just people putting time and effort into it, and there's a lot of money behind it as well. I see a lot of people on X talking about them building out their own little editors and editors doing specific things. It's coming for sure.
Well, we'll dive a bit deeper into the whole video editing, hey gen, remotion a bit later in the episode, but it's super exciting indeed, and I think there's big opportunities if you know how to build or what to build there. Let's go straight into the AI topics, because the timeline has been saying that the AI super cycle might take a while, and then there was this map of the AI super cycle, and it's saying we're in year 4 of 15, and phase 1 has already ran, where phase 1 basically is the semiconductors, memory and storage, photonics and optics, and companies like NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, Micron. That's the ones that the tickers that have been currently dominating the timeline. What this theory says is phase 2 is currently going on, and we are in year 4 with the compute, the AI data center build out, the compute wars, which we've been discussing. power, grid, cooling, networking. But then next is rare earths, space, defense, drones, robotics, and the final frontier is AI software dominance and AGI infrastructure. Now, this is looking far into the future. I don't want to speculate too much on this. I just want to see, what do you guys think about the AI super cycle, and if this is really a way to look at it, or how can we benefit from this, basically?
So as I look through this, you have NVIDIA, you have the people that are just making the actual chips so that we can run AI. And then the infrastructure really comes next. And then it's kind of putting everything together and moving it into the real world, into the physical world. I guess I keep going back to looking at what Elon's trying to do with building out this one conglomerate called Elon, right? And he's basically the only player that's kind of playing in all of these different markets, right? Everything from making the silicon himself to then the power, moving things to space so that the data centers, the solar, everything is, all of the AI training is happening out there. And then with Tesla, building in the real world, the Optimus robot is basically the biggest potential product to bring AI into everyone's home, and not just in the digital way, but also in the physical way. Beyond that, I will say, it's interesting to see all of the, let's call it Big Fang, right? Facebook, Amazon, Google, they're all on that phase 4. They're the last ones in this. So I do wonder whether those companies would be kind of moving upstream and be getting more into the other parts of the business.
If you think about Google, for example, with their investment arm making a lot of money there, or having stakes in a lot of these other companies, SpaceX, for example, going off Earth. Yeah, good point that Elon actually has a hand in all of these. And also with, for example, the home batteries and maybe distributed systems and all these things. Like, it's very interesting how Elon is everywhere. And I found it funny how when people are discussing this, saying EWS after this Anthropic deal, that like you have AWS and now you have EWS, and Anthropic actually working with Elon for EWS, and Elon offering compute and data centers to everyone now, and that's his new cash cow. Matt, do you have any opinions on the future of AI or the AI supercycle?
Yeah, I'm super skeptical on anyone that says they know exactly what's going to happen and they put like dates to it as well. However, I do believe like the general progression is correct, and the move, I mean, we're seeing it now, right? The move towards infrastructure, and infrastructure being the bottleneck and everything. It is interesting how Elon has his fingers in all the pies, and maybe he's gearing up to be the evil AI overlord. He's everyone's friend now, and I think we're all like fanboys of him now, but once he controls everything, flicks that switch, could be interesting. What I'm really interested to see is the robotics side of things come into the real world, because I think that like AI at the moment, we're kind of in like an echo chamber. But when the robotics comes into the real world, I think that's going to be the next level of disruption.
Talking about robotics, I actually saw this video just right before the pod.
Yeah, this is such a good marketing ploy.
There she is.
I spent years working in Amazon's fulfillment centers, and like the thing that we kept seeing was that these robots would break every 1 or 2 hours, and then you'd have to get someone to turn off the machine so that then you could clear the way and fix the robot and then put it back on, restart it, make sure that everything's safe. But to have a live stream, right, which you can just consistently see the packages, just granted, I guess what the robot is doing is not that complex, but it's definitely exciting. And it's what Elon also talks about, the March of the Nines, right? The March of the Nines is as things get more reliable, you're going out further into 0.0001% of the time where there's a defect and you need to go in and correct it. So it's such a good marketing ploy to be able to just check in and see.
Really good.
What I like about this is that even though robots are now in the frame, they're still chucking around the packages just like a human would. I think I saw one like flip off the conveyor belt just then. Even with robots involved, you're still going to get damaged packages.
Yeah. This used to be my second ever student job, was literally this. A fast band, and then you got to scan a clothing package and throw it in their containers. Yeah, those students not going to have a job anymore. So sad. What they got to do? Competing with robots. I mentioned it in the intro. NVIDIA became the first company ever to reach $5.5 trillion and basically carrying the S&P to highs they never seen before either. You had Nvidia, you have Intel, you have a bunch of stocks in the S&P that are doing very, very well. S&P, new all-time high, just happened yesterday. Nvidia, as we discussed, $5.5 trillion market cap. Not going to go too far into that. But this is building on the idea of this picture has been going viral as well for the last months, actually, but it resurfaced on my timeline. And it's actually showing that we are living in an AI bubble, or at least an AI echo chamber, us three, and I think the people listening to this podcast. Because if you look here, each dot represents 3.2 million people. If you're listening, it's a big grid of a bunch of dots, and each dot represents 3.2 million people, where only a small part of the people actually used free chatbots or free AI chatbots, and then like 7 squares actually pays for AI, but then only one of those squares, one dot of 3.2 million people, used AI for coding. On my Twitter, it looks like everyone is AI coding and everyone is vibe coding, and same on my YouTube. So it's like a bit of a confirmation that we are living in an echo chamber. And yeah, I'm just wondering, because the tweet here also says the singular red dot is causing a massive compute shortage, and you think memory stocks have topped? Ben, I see you saying yes. What's your thoughts when you see this?
Yeah, well, so I do think the chart's missing something pretty big. Basically, like, developers are a small slice by headcount, but if you actually adjusted for tokens consumed, that red dot would not stay one dot, right? Coder might burn 60 to 100 times more tokens than a casual ChatGPT user. I think I saw a guy even post online that he logged 865 million tokens in a single month, which is about $2,500 in API costs. So basically, if you redrew that pyramid by tokens consumed instead of just by headcount, you would get 50 or maybe even 100 dots for those coders, right? And so, yeah, the shortage isn't just some niche group, I guess, melting things. It is the people who are historically like building out every product, hitting the infrastructure all at once. And those people are 10x engineers, right? We always say how in AI causes a normal engineer to be 10x. And that only happens if you're consuming a lot of tokens. So the last thing I guess I'll say is I'd be curious to know what % of society are software developers, but it's probably something similar to that one red dot, right? Maybe it's even less than one red dot of how many developers there are in the world.
I mean, how many 10x engineers are actually there, right? Because if you think about even our token spend compared to Peter Steinberger's token spend, where he has a token limit of 50 million tokens per minute, I consume about 30 million tokens per month, right? Like, just to put that into perspective, those 10x engineers are even like way, way, way outspending people like us who are also basically continuously using AI all day, every day.
Peter is also the prototypical example of someone who is using agents, right, to be able to build when he's not working or when he's sleeping, basically, right? So he basically has, I'm sure, a pipeline and a roadmap. And I would wager to say that, you know, this is one of the amazing parts about open source in general, is that you can have a roadmap that's public to the world. And so everyone's adding their little features. And then Peter's just going in, he's saying, yeah, let's add that feature to the roadmap. Let's add that one. And then these products are just being built while he's not even at his computer. I think that's probably the only way you can get to 50 million tokens per minute, is this open source roadmap that everyone's kind of curating together.
I ran a little experiment on my Instagram, which has an audience full of normies with this thing. And I was wondering, are you actually using AI? So my question was, do you use AI? 90 to 10. Then the next, do you use AI every day? We get to 73% saying yes. Then I asked, do you pay for using AI? Here is 63%, which is basically like the yellow dots on the bigger picture. And then also wanted to see how many AI tools do you pay for. Basically, where I was surprised that this, like, it doesn't really represent the big scale of dots. Like, and then I'm thinking as well, like, my audience on Instagram doesn't seem like a technical audience, doesn't seem like a tech-first audience. It's literally normies that are not spending their whole day behind the computer, they have a job or they do whatever. So then I'm thinking, if they vote like this, what does impact this difference in like using AI or not using AI? Is it geographical? Is it because there's a lot of people in Africa that are not using AI, and is that a big part of the bigger picture? Like, I would love to see a study on geographical usage of AI as well. That's probably out there.
Rik, even though you have normies that are your audience is probably average age around 30,
Yes.
right? And so when you look at those dots, our parents are not using AI every day. Our grandparents are not using AI perhaps at all, right? If you were to just look into 20 to 30-year-olds who are in, let's say, first world countries, I think it must be north of like 70, 80%. It is surprising, though, that even your audience, right, it looked like people using AI every day was only around 70%, right? Was that the number? I would think that would be, I think it would be higher. Yeah.
I was even 10% not using AI. I was kind of surprised that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how many people are using it because their work has told them, hey, we need to be using AI. How many people are using it because of their own volition as well?
Yeah, true. Good point.
I talked to more girls seem to be using AI when it comes to like this whole therapy world. Like I've met a lot of girls, especially in the last few months, that it seems like they use these chatbots as like therapists. And I wonder if that's almost one of the biggest use cases. I think
Matt.
Sam Altman did say that. Yeah.
Where have we heard this before? Was
Why?
like whenever I was posting on Instagram and I get these viral videos on like emotional stuff, like all my followers were basically women, and it was all like heartbreak relationship stuff. So I told Matt, like, hey, he asked me, Rik, what would you do with this audience? Like, does it bring you any value? I'm like, yeah, I can always build an AI therapist for them.
Yeah.
And now you're actually confirming this thesis. Maybe I should have just done it. Maybe that's one of the apps for my ship season. Yeah.
And I think you see like those stats which people always like freak out about in terms of like, oh, like 30% of people under 30 have used AI for mental health or something like that. There are some, I've used a lot of AI tools. There's one called Sesame, which is incredibly lifelike and incredibly like empathetic. Is that the right word? Have you guys used it before?
Yeah. Maya, it's the best voice model I've heard.
Yes. I think people think it's dangerous, and I can understand why. You know, sharing your deepest, darkest with some data center that's somewhere, and you don't know who controls that data. But I'm sure that in 5 years' time, it's going to be used a lot. AI therapists or AI, maybe not therapy, but like, you know, that just layer where you like need to talk something through or whatever it is. It's coming for sure, or it's already here to some degree.
Yeah, what's funny there too is that recently shared this article about a government suing Elon or suing XAI because there was 4 cases of people that had some mental issues due to talking to AI. Like all those people using AI, I think there's way more people than 4 that actually benefit from sharing what's in their head with an AI, because otherwise it just stays in their head. But it's funny that they nitpick 4 cases to then go after the AI creators. And maybe that's why you got to be careful building AI therapists if you're not qualified. But
yeah, it's classic news cycle stuff, right? Like a good example of this is Teslas, right? That they're much safer than normal cars. But what gets in the headline is when the Tesla made a stupid error and like ran over a cyclist, right? It's not headlines where it's like, oh, Tesla saved another life today.
Other news, the usual suspects, Anthropic and OpenAI, keep competing, and Anthropic beats OpenAI in business adoption for the first time per ramp data, which is quite interesting if you think about the user adoption, which is totally different numbers, where I think like OpenAI or ChatGPT is around 85%, where Anthropic is like maybe 5 to 10. You see now that Anthropic overtaken OpenAI in business adoption. Maybe quickly adding the next one as well, that OpenAI, that Anthropic responded to this straight away. Oh no. That OpenAI straight away responded to this, hitting back and giving Codex for the next 30 days for free to new businesses signing up to Codex. So it's this game that's continuously being played, or the fight that keeps going on between Sam and Dario, trying to onboard and trying to become the main the main provider to all these organizations. Matt, I see you saying yes, yes. How close have you been following the fight between Anthropic, and what's your main tool that you're using now?
My main tool is actually Cursor. I'm a bit of a Cursor fanboy. I generally think it's getting more so like this, that like your actual productivity is probably largely the same, whether you're on Cursor, whether you're on Anthropic Claude, whether you're on Codex. They leapfrog each other and bring out like different features every month. Underlying, I think you're still getting roughly the same if you know what you're doing. What I think is interesting here, which is not on the stats, is although Anthropic may have just overtaken OpenAI in terms of businesses paying for this tool, if we go back to what we talked about earlier in terms of token usage, I think Anthropic have been ahead for several months, maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months, in terms of people doing heavy work, people using a lot of tokens. Because I think everyone that's some way developer inclined, that's building something, has been using Anthropic, has been using the Claude models for the last like 4 months, right? But it's interesting to see that I imagine that those numbers are skewed massively by businesses who are just like, oh, we need an AI chatbot essentially that can connect to a few of our tools. It's interesting to see that Anthropic is like broken into that market as well.
I think Ramp AI needs to do a better job of really specifying to what degree you've adopted AI within your business, right? Because I was looking at that chart, and Rik, if you scroll up a little bit, yeah, and I know that I guess they have some details there, but it was interesting. Yeah, do we want to talk about kind of what it constitutes?
My first thought was the Google comment. Google surprised me as well. Is it determined by dedicated AI spend? I wonder how it looks in terms of objective token count or wattage spend. It seems like Google AI ecosystem is embedded in much of what we already use, but I think this is more on the AI coding front and not on the AI usage front. It's more like actually using the AI coding. That's the share of US businesses with paid subscriptions to AI models, platforms, and tools.
Because, I mean, look at 2025. That was where there was a huge jump. Mainly it came from OpenAI at the beginning of 2025, right? But all of the data kind of shows that at the beginning of this year is when token spend just exploded, right? The amount of tokens, and if you were to look at the beginning of 2026 is really when token usage as an infrastructure, like look, so January 2026, we were at 7 trillion tokens, and now we're at 28 trillion, right? We've 4x'd in 4 or 5 months in terms of the worldwide like token spend, at least on open routers level. So how do you show AI adoption? Matt, you mentioned an AI chatbot. That's one level of adoption, but I don't necessarily see that being a full AI adoption. I see it when you have an agent that's sitting aside you in the Slack channel with your team that's pushing pull requests, right, for other people to review. That level of adoption is interesting. And the last thing I guess I'll say is that, like, you know, OpenAI started dipping in terms of AI adoption, and I think that probably spooked a lot of people at OpenAI. And we've documented on this show like a few of the co-founders and leadership, they've all left in the last couple months, and it's really directionally taken from Anthropic, right? As Anthropic is just shooting up, that's where OpenAI's adoption went down. And it's not coming from Google, surprisingly, and it's definitely not coming from XAI today.
And I found it just interesting to see these battles, like literally Anthropic announces or Anthropic beats them, Sam comes out and then offers huge advantages for people, for businesses to shift. For the next 2 months you get Codex for free, and then you get the response from Anthropic again. Claude Code weekly limits are increased by 50% now through July 13th. So then, like, it's just continuously push and pull and see who gives more, who gives what. It's an ongoing battle, and yeah, it's clearly they just want to lock in the business and lock in the enterprises because, otherwise if you lose a customer or an enterprise once, it's very hard to get them back.
I would love to ask Matt a couple questions about Cursor. What do you love about Cursor? Like, why do you want to use that as your workflow? Like, how do you see that better than Codex or Claude Code? Yeah.
So the first reason, which is probably, you know, important, is it was the first proper IDE, right, when it came to writing code with AI. And there's a certain amount of like first mover. That's the fun I used. And again, I don't think there's a massive advantage over one ecosystem over another. So there's a certain amount of this is what I've used, this is what I like to use. But also, Cursor's limits are incredible. I am shocked that more people are not talking about this. So you can see it really clearly within Cursor's dashboard that you get, I think it's a month for Cursor, right? I'm on like the lowest subscription tier within Cursor. You pay $18, you get $180 worth of tokens for free. And then once you've used those, you still get to use Composer absolutely for free as well. It's a little bit slower. It's not quite as good as some of like the frontier models out there. Yeah, sure. But to be honest with you, the stuff that I do not need the most intelligent models. Like a lot of my time is spent editing videos and like I spend like editing videos within like Remotion and hyperframes where essentially you're just editing an HTML file or React elements. You don't need that clever of a model to do that. And actually having unlimited usage is way more useful to me than the other ones. I also like the way in which like the agents are set out nicer in Cursor, especially with the agent side of things, which is exactly the same with Codex. It's interesting to see that people are loving Codex for this feature. I'm kind of over here like, guys, Cursor's had this for like months. Like, what? I don't quite understand why people aren't like hyping about Cursor so much. But at the end of the day, I don't think it matters dramatically.
But I think that speaks to why you're using Cursor. If it doesn't matter which platform, of course you want to use the one that's not going to lock you in and that's going to be transferable. Where, let's say Claude is down, you're like, okay, let me just move to OpenAI's, GPT 5.5 models, right? So that answers the question. If all these are the same and they're kind of commodities, you want to go to a provider that can distribute to the best model at that time. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's one thing which I think is unique about Cursor. I mean, you could do it with like things like OpenRouter as well, but I can access GPT 5.5, I can access Opus 4.7 directly within Cursor. I can access everything.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to be. And like these were, like it's got all like the annotation. They were the first to come out with the aspect where you could open up the preview of like localhost and you could click on an element and it would reference that element within the chat. It's just little things like that. I think all the other ones have that as well now. I think maybe the developer experience of you actually being able to see the code and or like your project structure, and then you could dive into like the EMVs if you need to and edit something. Someone that has a little bit of experience like myself, like it's just you just feel a little bit safer. Maybe you feel like you have more control because you can see what it's doing rather than especially with Claude where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you to do your thing. I can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
I guess I like that.
Yeah, I still remember a year ago, Rik, pretty much a little over a year ago was when Rik was using Claude Code. I was on Cursor. And once I made that move over to Claude Code, this Claude Code was able to make changes. It was legitimately a step function difference. And I just didn't look back since, right? But now everyone's saying that the Cursor is a better harness than Claude Code. So it's probably worth a second look. Yeah.
The thing which I have found is actually that for me, for my workflows, Cursor is much quicker. And I think it's because it doesn't try and check things as much. So whenever I'm developing, especially like editing videos, Codex, or within Claude Code, it tries to be like too clever in terms of I ask for a change and it says, oh yeah, I'll make that change. And it's a little bit slow in actually writing the HTML for that change. But then also it like spins up the preview, takes a screenshot of the preview, feeds it back into itself and goes, oh, is this correct? However, if the preview is there, I can just look at the preview and I can go, oh no, you've made the mistake here. Let me change that. And if I'm editing it in real time, that is much quicker. It's not as clever because, AI isn't doing everything. But if I just want to get this thing done, it is way more efficient for the human to do the thing which the human is good at and the AI to do the thing that the AI is good at. A lot of times I've been saying in the last week, actually, to when I'm using Codex, I say, don't check when I'm doing something that's visual because I will check it. I know what's good. I don't want you to take a screenshot and then feedback and then it's taking like 5 minutes to get a response. Let you do what you're good at. I'll do what I'm good at.
Yeah. Testing is still something where the AI models are not that good at. Like it tries screenshotting it and the screenshot takes forever. Like Claude Code is taking control of the Chrome and screenshotting it. And that's actually a really good tip. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to be like, no, don't check. I'll do the checking. You'll do the code creation and I'll just make sure that it looks good. Yeah.
Oh, we're back to square zero then, checking ourselves. That's why I shifted from Cursor to Claude Code because Cursor, the agent, made me do quite a lot of things still back like a year ago. Now probably that changed. And while Claude Code, you could give it a testing plan and it kind of test it. The token economics is indeed a big benefit of Cursor, where with the Claude Max plan, you max out a lot. And I mentioned this on WhatsApp as well, Ben, about the change in daily limits, or like your limits got 2x, but your weekly limits were not. And now after 5 days, I literally maxed out my weekly limit. And that's more annoying than being maxed out after 5 hours.
Yes.
I hate it. Because now it's Thursday, it's like on Saturday my weekly limit's reset and I'm at 92%. What the fuck do I need to do? So I much rather have it.
You got to upgrade, Rik. That's what you got to do. You got to pay more. You got to go up a tier.
I'll start paying for Cursor. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, when you know that you've got unlimited compute with Cursor at the moment, don't know how long it's going to last, you stop thinking about, oh, okay, should I build this? Should I not build this? I don't know about you guys, but when I'm using Claude, I look in my limits and I go, oh, but I might need it in a couple of days' time. I don't want to burn through it doing this. Whereas when I'm in Cursor, I'm like, yeah, go on, do that. And I know that like it's not like taking away from the things I might want to build.
Indeed, if I think about the economics, I just canceled my $100 Claude plan. With $100, I can take $20 Cursor, $20 Codex, $20 Claude, and I still have $40 left that I'm probably going to pay XAI or Grok, right? And then I still have $20 left that I could use on a video generation model. It just doesn't make much sense, honestly, for me to keep my Claude Max plan, like you say as well. You don't need frontier models for all tasks. Most of the tasks that I use them for, is lookup, is writing, is other stuff. I have my skills ready, so why do I need Opus to execute all of this stuff?
Yes.
I can just as well use a Sonnet or a well-trained other model, like ChatGPT or another one.
The intelligence of models is like you're getting diminishing returns, right? I mean, we saw it with 4.7. The 4.7 came out, and people are like, okay, fine. The model that's been the most useful for me recently, actually today is the last day that they're making it available, they're getting rid of it after today, is Grok 4.1 Fast, because it is so cheap compared to like 4.7. I think it's less than a tenth of the price, yet it's still really intelligent. And like you were saying with skills, actually what I find more useful is being able to feed in more context about this is what I'm trying to do, these are all the tools I've got connected, this is like the star guide, whatever it is. That gets a better output than having a smarter model. Therefore, if I can have a less smart model, but feed in a low-ball context because it's like a 20th of the cost, that's actually getting a better output. So I'm really excited to see cheaper but still good models. Yeah, I wonder why XAI have stopped 4.1 Fast. I wonder whether loads of people are using it. I think that's probably not the case. More models like that.
The whole Colossus 1 being sold off to Anthropic was basically because people were not using Grok models nearly as much as they expected, right? So that ended up giving Elon the ability to be able to sell it off and basically fund the next iteration of the Grok models.
I saw Peter Levels tweet about this too. He had this Grok model integrated in all his tools, and he said like, oh, I really wish that there was a way how I could just automatically transfer this, because now I have to go in all the tools, like in my 35 startups, go and make changes because Grok gets this model that I'm using and everything gets stopped. I think only the smart people that actually think about token economics are have been using that, and all the others just didn't know it existed or it was so good in doing small tasks. People are just using whatever is top of mind, using a Sonnet for everything or using GPT 5 point whatever for these tasks, even though, yeah, you can use Google Flash if you want to. Have you guys seen this article about HTML is the new Markdown? This is very interesting to me as well. And what's interesting as well is it comes from a Anthropic researcher, and then you saw some comments on there that, yeah, sure, you're going to push HTML because it's going to burn more tokens and you're going to make more money. But I actually started using HTML, or like starting to generate stuff into HTML a few weeks to months ago. And the whole, like, 2-3 months ago, everything was Markdown, Markdown, Markdown. Build your knowledge base in Markdown. Find solutions to read your Markdown. Everyone's setting up their stuff in Obsidian, starting to combine Claude Code or Codex with Obsidian so that you could actually read what your agents output. But This article describes basically what's the difference between HTML and Markdown, and why HTML is actually superior to using Markdown. And I really loved reading this article because like HTML is way more visual, right? Where Markdown is text files, and nobody really wants to read 500 lines of text to approve a plan. While in Markdown, if an agent creates a plan, it gives you some visuals, it can give you the colors, it gives you tables, designs, illustrations, code, interactions, workflows, spatial, images. And I started using this now to generate my PRDs, for example, and other stuff. So I'm just wondering, have you guys read this article, have seen this article?
Well, starting with Markdown files, I always thought of them as the best way for AIs to be able to just read and understand kind of information the way that you and I would document things. But I think maybe as the models have gotten more powerful, rather than speaking two different languages, one being the coding world and another being how the AIs are documenting things, they're saying, why not bring them together into one language, which is just HTML, right? Mm-hmm. Because HTML can show the actual code, but then it can also document things as well, build applications anyway.
Yeah, Matt, you've been using HTML with your video HTML.
Yep, it's good about this. So I read this and I was like, okay, let me try it out. And I converted a Markdown file over to HTML, and it used 5 times the amount of tokens. And in an era where like people are concerned about the tokens that they're spending and everyone's reaching their Claude limits, like my best videos on YouTube, the most viewed videos, let me say, are the ones where people are like, how do I stop hitting my limits? How can I use it for free? I think it's like vibe coding or using it a lot. Is concerned about their usage limits. So for me, the real question that's been in my head is like, is it actually worth it? I can see some cases where it is. Like I think there are some things like data in tables is better understood within HTML files. It's better for human and AI like cooperation because the human can understand it and the AI can use it. But Rik, you said you were playing around with that. Have you seen like actual improvements that's worth the extra 5x spend or whatever from it being in HTML?
I'm a visual person, so for me it does make a difference. And also I've seen there's like an FAQ, or he replied to some of the replies, and he said that you could lower your token spend to basically similar spend as Markdown if you have, for example, CSS classes over your full folder or your full file system, and then it doesn't have to go and rewrite this every time. I do have that for my whole project folder, so there I think I might save on tokens. And for me, as like my next app that I'm gonna launch tomorrow for my 30 and 30 challenge is basically a PRD generator to generate your PRDs in HTML, to have everything visually. So you have your flows, your user flows, and all of these things, plus the colors. So then I can see it all, and I can give feedback on what I see instead of having to read and assume the agent understands it, or creates a wireframe with lines and axes instead of actually generate a wireframe. So in that sense, I, as a visual person, as a non-coder, I prefer HTML, even though I might spend 2x more tokens. I think spending 2x more tokens is worth it to understand the plan better and to actually know what I'm approving. Because if I got to read, me with my ADHD and potentially dyslexia, I don't read plans, So like, if I can see it, I prefer it.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. That like it produces a PRD, it's all in Markdown, and you scroll through it and you go, that seems about right. Build it. Rather than HTML, you see what's going on, you can pick out things. Yeah. I think it's a tool in the tool belt, right? To move over to everything in HTML, because a lot of things I don't need to read it through. Like I'm not reading through my style guide every single day and checking it. A use case of it that I used just yesterday is that for my community, I was building a workflow within Claude long form YouTube videos, and it produces like different scenes within the video. And previously, when it would create the scenes, it would produce a Markdown file so that AI could read it later, and so it wasn't just stored within the history. Now being able to produce that within HTML, I say now, I think what this article has done is made people being like, oh yeah, I could also produce HTML files. Yeah. So in that workflow, when it produces something that I want to check within a workflow, being able to produce that within HTML, which doesn't just look nicer, but what we're just talking about there, Rik, like if you can better understand it, you're more likely to catch errors, you're more likely to actually review it, and therefore you're more likely to actually get a better result. Like having better usability actually does produce a better result. So I think in some use cases, I'm using it more now. For me, maybe I'll change my tune in a couple of weeks, couple of months, but for me, I'm not moving completely over to HTML.
Okay, for certain use cases, right? Like for specifically PRDs, like that's my main use case that I would use HTML for. And my world of HTML opened up 3-4 months ago when I made this question card game. When I asked Claude create a question card game in the Claude app, and I see it's HTML. Like, what? This is a whole game built in HTML in like one file? Or I didn't even know how it worked, right? But could download it and could play it in my browser if I wanted to. And that's what, like, HTML can be interactive. HTML can have different layers. You can literally build a game in there if it's not too complex. So that's when the world of HTML opened, and then I realized, like, whoa, this is actually more than static web pages. And then I think it does have their place in a stack if you're building and you're a visual person, for sure.
One thing which I haven't played around with is having like JavaScript elements within there and seeing how interactive these can be.
Another thing that Anthropic integrated, what OpenAI or actually the agent explorers introduced to the world, is the /goals function. And I've seen a lot of people like saying this is one of the biggest improvements that agentic AI has or could have implemented, because you can now basically say /goal to Codex, to Claude, and it's non-stop gonna continue doing things until the goal is reached. And I've seen cases where non-coders like us, or at least like me, someone non-technical even, gives a goal to Codex, and Codex goes, and 4 days later Codex comes back and sold 200 items that this person wanted to still sell. And then the steps that Codex took was going and find leads, going and send emails, following up emails, then actually selling the thing, and then coming back and saying, hey, we sold your whole inventory. And that was like eye-opening, because this basically is what OpenClaw, for example, also did, 24/7 execution of things, of workflows, of whatever, but then with an actual goal in mind. I haven't really implemented or used goals. I think I want to start using this next. I haven't done it because I was hitting my token limits, because I've been building quite a lot of shit, right? Have you guys been playing with goals yet? Because I think this is super interesting to see. And yeah, if you gotta believe the timeline, this is a big thing.
Yeah, I just checked in the Claude app and I did the /goal, and I don't even see that as something. It does look like a lot of these features tend to come first for the terminal. And so perhaps that is available if I was using Claude Code within a terminal as opposed to the Claude app. Or perhaps I need to it might be because I need to update my Claude app. But it's hard to update the Claude app when you have these agents that are always working, right? Because you never want to update it, because then you have to stop the agents from kind of working on a task at any time. But this goal feature is an amazing one that I'm super excited to try out, because I think it tells the AIs in the world of inference kind of similar to how training works, right? It has something to do with rewards-based training, right? Where you reward the model if it gets you to the outcome that you want it to get to, which is in some cases, better designed websites that people review and they're like, yes, that website is better than that one. And similarly here with this goal, the AI knows, okay, this is the actual thing that I need to achieve before I can put my hands up and say, okay, take over now and go check my work. And I was launching like a rather larger feature this week with Opus 4.7. And it was really the first time since 4.7 came out where I wanted to build a big feature with not as much details, I'd say, as I had maybe previously in the day gone through an entire planning mode process to try to build that out. And the output was honestly subpar, right? It missed a lot of features. It built the UI with buttons that, as opposed to using previous buttons that we had in our design system, it kind of went about it its own way. It went off the rails. And I do wonder if I use something with more of like a goal, that goal being, really emphasizing amazing user experience, making it simple and easy that can be used on different environments, whether it's mobile or desktop or tablet. I think that giving the AI this North Star metric of a goal is probably something that's going to be incredibly important for the agents to know when to stop, right? Because when you have these agents that are just going off and doing a million tasks at once, I'm starting to think like almost the way that we had plan mode in the last year.
Yeah.
Goal may be something that's almost like a non-negotiable that everyone's going to be doing, and Codex will have as well.
I've seen different levels of goals as well. There's people using goals for their quarterly goals. There's people that are using goals for a one-time task that I want to see being done without having to interfere. So there's different kind of goals. You can say, hey, at the end of the quarter, I want to hit this amount of revenue. Let's work towards that, and let's plan our things that we do or the things that we execute based off that goal. But there's also people that say, hey, our goal is to sell out the stock so that we can do something else. So I guess you can choose yourself how you are actually using this goal.
Yeah, but do we know, is the goal set at the project level? Is it set at the task level? Because that would help kind of understand it. It would almost be cool to have for instance, for my SaaS products, it's maybe revenue per user, right? The goal is to increase revenue per user. And so then every feature element that it's doing, it's considering this idea of trying to maximize revenue, right? We'll have to play around this week. It would be cool if we even threw a couple $100 in and said, hey, our goal is to make money on the internet.
You said that you couldn't find it in your Claude desktop, but they also just announced Claude Code Agent View, which basically solves the issue of having to have multiple terminal tabs open to keep track of your agents. And this is rolled out and I guess if you're talking about the goals and you have it on a project level, then you could have indeed multiple agents under that working towards one similar goal. Matt, what do you think about the goals? Or
Yeah. I'm going to bring some British skepticism to this one. Is this much different? Do you remember like the Ralph Wiggum loop?
Probably not much different.
Was it January?
Yeah, this was right before OpenClaw.
I remember that had like a big boom, and people were like, this is crazy. You can now set it off and it would just do its own thing. I have no talk about or say that they use it in the last like 3 months. I'm skeptical about giving AI like a big task, especially when it's a non-technical task. So like Ben, when you're saying like increase the revenue per user, AI is going to go off and be like, great, I'll just like cancel all the subscriptions of all the lowest paying people, so now the revenue per user is much higher. I'm skeptical about this sort of stuff. I wonder if it's a little bit of a marketing gimmick. Like I think also what you showed there about having the agents, the Claude CLI tool, having all the agents in one window is like, fine. Can you not just do that in Codex or Cursor, where you've got your different projects and you've got all your agents on the different side, on the side panel? The video is the best bit. The video looks great, but in terms of like the actual like, is this improving your workflow? Like,
I moved out of the terminal, so I'm already in the Claude desktop app, but I might move to Cursor. Now you've been saying it. It was a kind of pain in the ass to have multiple terminals on one web, on one page, and then like, oh, where did I left off? How do I find the agents that have been working for me? It was hard to keep track for me in the terminal because I've never worked in a terminal before. So I guess this could have made it easier, but it's kind of 12 months late. The video indeed is the best thing. And the slash goals was like, good point what you say there. Ralph Wiggum was quite similar. And yeah, Claude or Anthropic and also OpenAI has been implementing these things that the open source community has been using for 5 months now. And they're finding ways to implement this in a secure way into their products. Ralph Wiggum was followed by OpenClaw, and OpenClaw took over with the cron jobs and the auto running. Probably you could have given OpenClaw a goal too, right? And not come back until it's finished.
I think maybe there's more to it that I don't know, but I do sometimes give my agents like follow-up tasks and reinforcement loops. Like if I'm creating videos, I'll say, okay, go through, check all of the scenes and make sure that you haven't got like elements overlapping. So like it's unreadable or there's tiny text somewhere. Which I think it achieves the same sort of goal, right? You're essentially wanting it to check its work and do an iteration on the work if it's got something wrong. I think what's interesting is seeing people's reaction to it and people going, that's what I want. I want to just be able to give it an end goal and it do the end goal. Whether this is how to achieve that or not.
Maybe it's also just pushing people to think about what's the end goal and not just start without a goal. And that's quite important when you work with agents, to actually have a goal in mind or have a clear plan. And people just say, hey, build me this. And then the agent makes decisions. And now people actually think, what's the goal of doing this? It's the goal setting. Maybe just the slash. If it was called slash something else, it would have never gone viral. And now people actually realize, oh, I got to start a project with a goal in mind. That's a good idea. Last Anthropic news is some negative Anthropic news, because they mentioned starting from June 15 paid Claude plans. Starting from June 15, paid Claude plans can claim a dedicated monthly credit for programmatic usage. The credit covers usage of Claude Agent SDK, Claude Code GitHub Actions, and third-party apps built on the Agent SDK. This means that, for example, me and Ben, with our Claude subscription, can use OpenClaw and get $100 of Claude credits to use on OpenClaw. So for us, it actually opens up the doors to trying new stuff. But there's also a lot of businesses that have incorporated or implemented Claude and Claude Code and Claude SDK and offer that to users. So for those businesses, their usage limits per user will go down significantly. And I've seen some numbers that it's about 40x going, like that. Now the limits have gone down 40x. So I'm thinking about, for example, a Lovable or some other projects that actually use Claude below the hood, that they got to completely rethink or restructure their architecture and their providers, maybe even, because suddenly your business and your margins are going to decrease a lot. 40x, right? Ben, maybe. How about you? What do you think of this? For us, it's positive, but I can imagine for others.
Yeah. Well, it's positive in the sense that we now have some clarity and we get to use OpenClaw to some extent, right? But I think the announcement of 50% higher Claude Code limits, right? So if we take that 50% higher, it means that a $200 plan, we were getting about, I think it's $7,500 in monthly usage of the Claude tokens if we were to go to the API and use it that way. So for $200, you're getting $7,500 to spend within Claude Code, but you're only getting $200 to spend on OpenClaw or outside of the Anthropic internal Claude Code ecosystem, right? A lot of people have said that Cursor's better, that OpenCode is better, that even T3 code is better. So this basically locks people in. Perhaps I'll start running a little bit of my OpenClaw usage with that $200 a month.
We can bring cool. Nick back.
We can bring Nick back. We could bring Nick back. We could probably use him as a junior engineer, junior associate, but we can't be running 10 Nicks at the same time, right? Yeah. In order to do that, you need to be running within Claude Code. And yeah, Anthropic is really putting the hammer down and saying, hey guys, if you guys want to use our subscription, you need to be using it within our ecosystem. That's it.
I kind of found it interesting as well, seeing this, like Theo raging about it, and then like, oh yeah, here is at 40x, the rate limit's cut by 40x, even though they pay 40k to Anthropic a month. But the comment here, you literally built a business on their subsidization and you're surprised to learn that their generosity has limits. Like, both sides are right here, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's unsustainable for Anthropic to keep it going, but on the other side, it's also people have been building their businesses on top of these services and now have to completely reevaluate the validity of their business models or providers.
A lot of people don't give Apple flack or Google flack, but there's no app store outside of, the Apple App Store, the Android store, right? People just say, yeah, okay, this is the App Store, and they kind of control it. On the other side, I really do kind of understand if we're subscribing to an Anthropic product, we have to use the Anthropic products within their ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. And they're giving us a little bit of access outside of it. But in this world, there's so much change that each provider is trying to lock it down as much as they can within their ecosystem.
Do you think this is the reason that David Sachs calls this a monopoly somehow? I was surprised when he mentioned in last weekend's episode that Anthropic is running towards being an AI monopoly. I'm like, there's other providers, no? And what do you guys think of Anthropic being a monopoly in AI or on the way to becoming one? This is
monopoly in the AI
David
space?
Sachs, the advisor or ex-advisor of Trump and the builder of the AI task force for the U.S. government called Anthropic, on its way to becoming a monopoly. If they continue with the current growth rate, as in another 10x revenue increase over the next year, that means that they basically have an AI monopoly.
I think what he was kind of facetiously saying was that congrats to Anthropic for winning the AGI race, right? But he did kind of theorize that the AI models that do make it to this AGI kind of finish line, they just will get recursively better. And then that margin, you know, so Matt, you mentioned like there's not that much difference between OpenAI and Anthropic. That margin may actually widen significantly for whichever company gets to that AGI finish line. However you want to define AGI, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I think Sachs is also coming at it from a lens of he aligns more with the OpenAI, more open source. I think Sachs is really just steel manning his own argument rather than actually commenting like what he thinks. Yeah.
I was just surprised seeing that. We've had Cursor, we've had Claude Code, we've had Codex, and now XAI, who is about to partner with Cursor, or about to buy Cursor, is introducing Grok Build. Grok Build is the XAI solution, or the way that I guess XAI wants to onboard developers to start developing with their models. An early beta of Grok Build, an agentic CLI for coding, building apps, and automating workflows is now available for Super Grok heavy subscribers. Through this early beta, we will improve the model and the product based on your feedback. Would you shift to Grok Build, even though, like, with those huge sale going on right now?
I watched a really interesting video. I think I sent it to you, Rik, about, it was from Theo, and he talked about what it takes to basically build a really good coding agent. There are three things, right? There's the research team, and I think a lot of people feel that Anthropic has some of the best research teams out there. The second one is data, and then the third one is compute, right? And data was actually the big thing that held XAI back, people are realizing, when it comes to building amazing models. Because it's not just about having large quantities of data. XAI has that with Twitter. There's tons of content on Twitter, but it's not quality content. And that was their issue, and that was why they partnered with Cursor. The third one was compute, and XAI does actually have compute, right? So basically the missing piece this whole time when it comes to XAI and the Grok models was not having access to big data. And the last thing that Theo kind of alluded to was that the internet basically closed down in the last couple of years, and it became way harder to scrape the internet. Before 2 years ago, OpenAI, Anthropic, these companies were able to basically query the entire internet, and that was what got them to, let's call it GPT 4.0 level. But then anything beyond that was kind of synthesizing the data and making really good data that they had access to when the internet was open, and again, amplifying it and improving it. So I will say that Cursor and Grok is an interesting and exciting potential competitor to Codex and Claude Code, because Grok is bringing the compute, whereas Cursor has really good data, since Matt, you and millions of other people are building their applications, and they're able to see all of this back and forth of how applications are essentially built and what good outputs look like, right? Because let's say you started a Cursor chat window and you said, I want to build this feature. And if Cursor is able to see that feature go into production, that's the reinforcement learning of saying, oh, that was a good thing that the AI did, versus let's say you build another feature and that one didn't end up making it to production. Cursor learns that's not a good one. They have an amazingly valuable data set. Some would say even $10 billion worth, because that's how much XAI is willing to pay for, even if they walk away from the deal, right?
Yeah, I'm very bullish on XAI in general. I won't be trying this because, like, as you can see there, Rik, was it like $600 in order to try it out? It's just not. However, with everything that you just said, Ben, I think they're coming. I think they've got the largest velocity of any of the players in the space at the moment. That may just be because they're behind, and therefore it's easy to have velocity because they're a little bit further behind. But with all of the new things we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and also like of their models, like I was saying before, like it has been my go-to for the last month or so. The 4.1, like all of the research is absolutely the best on Grok. I use Grok personally if I just want a chat interface because it doesn't give me bullshit and like woke answers like some of the other ones do. And they're pulling everything together in terms of, as you're saying, the compute, in terms of the data. I think they've probably got the best, or they have access to the best talent, with Elon attracting the best talent as well. So I wouldn't be betting against XAI in the long term, but yeah, I'm not paying $600. But thankfully, some people will, hopefully, and then they'll make it better for the rest of us.
I'm wondering if you're a power user and you're not really a coding power user, but are somehow spending a lot of tokens, then maybe it might be a good deal to do that. Like if you get $300 of usage for $100, and you get all of these things that they're announcing now too. For example, connectors, connecting all other apps onto your Grok, giving Grok skills is another thing they announced. Like this video basically shows, give me tools, I'll do the work, pull from your docs, calendar, email code, more with 20 new connectors. So they're following the footsteps of Codex with all their plugins, with Claude Code or with Claude with all their plugins, co-work basically, right? So yeah, Grok is XAI, very bullish on XAI because indeed they're still at the ground floor in terms of AI functionality. Grok has been great in the Twitter app to ask what's the most viral news or find me this meme. But now the connectors at work, great. This week they announced Grok now has skills, so basically built-in skills in Super Grok, the same as that we've been using skills in Claude for a while. They announced the Grok or the XAI voice cloning. We discussed this last week, I think, Ben, about the voice cloning here, which, yeah, that's another step forward for XAI that's competing with 11 Labs now and with other providers, probably being able to provide it cheaper and having all the compute themselves instead of having to rely on other providers. So yeah, super bullish with this ecosystem that can only get better from a quality perspective. Have you been using this, or do you see any use cases for the voice cloning, Matt?
I think there's a lot of usage, especially in content creation, especially paired with tools like HeyGen. I think voice cloning is pretty much solved. It's pretty incredible, the voice capabilities now.
I haven't used voice cloning until a few days ago, since I discovered in Descript that you can actually do voice cloning as well. And if I make some cuts or if I notice I'm saying a wrong word, then I actually sometimes regenerate one of those words. And I haven't done this before, but now, the last few days, I see myself actually using this to make it all sound smoother. So maybe this is something for your product as well, Matt. If you're building a video editor, get those voice cloning options in there to smoothen out certain cuts. Yeah, would highly recommend using it. Probably already do
I
this.
cannot condone. It's also very fun if you have friends who send you voice notes on WhatsApp. Just take all of them, clone their voice, send them back messages in their own voice. Great fun.
Have you actually been doing this?
No, I never break any terms of service, Rik. You know this. When that little checkbox appears and says, do you have full rights to use this voice? I always abide by that. Always abide by that.
I might implement Matt voice as this warm British voice as interviewer in my Sidekick app.
Yeah, you know how we were talking about AI therapists earlier? I'm going to clone your voice, Rik, and you could be my AI therapist.
I did actually see that people are taking their ex-girlfriends and boyfriends and they're voice cloning them so that they can still have conversations with them.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's some pretty toxic use cases, I think, of maybe voice cloning.
Yeah, it's just a tool, eh? You can use it how you want.
I see opportunities. Miss your ex, upload to voice chat, and you can forever talk to her.
You know,
That's USP.
I'm surprised we haven't seen malicious use, especially people send voice messages pretending to be a loved one, be like, hey, I need some me. You see it every now and again. It's
grandma
pretty rare,
messages.
very convincing for us, and we know all about this sort of shit. If you are someone that knows nothing about it, and you've been used to, if you hear the voice, it is that person. There's no question about it. Thankfully, I haven't heard more about it, but I am kind of surprised.
Yeah, true. XAI has been on a roll with the voice stuff because they also introduced your customer support needs a voice agent built for the real world. So you can now basically use Grok Voice Think Fast 1.0 for complex workflows with speed and accuracy. Hard to hear environments from multi-step troubleshooting to high volume tool calls. It keeps up. So it's not only voice cloning, it's also the talking to Grok gets better, and I think you can now plug into your products XAI catching up. Good stuff. Another announcement of SaaS tools or highly used tools that have always been closed but now are starting to open up is Notion. Just announced that they're opening up their platform even more for agents, announcing a Notion CLI, workers, database sync, agent tools, webhook triggers, external agents APIs, Notion Agents SDK, and Notion was already kind of being used as the main knowledge base for many people, or the main database, because they had an API and you could plug in your agents and you could have Notion as basically a visual database. People already were using Notion for a long time, and now plugging in Notion onto your favorite AI tool was already possible. But now with these tools, it actually, like, Notion is opening up for the AI agents in a way. And I think this is the move that companies will need to make to stay relevant, even though it's opening up the walled garden that they have been building. It is the only way, in my opinion, to stay relevant. Matt, you agree with me?
Yeah, I've been
on this
nodding like a dog over here.
I see you saying
I've
yeah.
been playing around with this, and I think it links to what we were saying about the Markdown versus HTML side of things, that context is so super important in terms of getting good results from AI, and therefore you kind of need a place where you keep all of your information about your personal life, about your business, about the products you sell, about your team, about everything to do with what you're trying to do. There's not one unified solution at the moment, right? I mean, people have been using Markdown files, but having Markdown files just on your local machine, as we are starting to see compute, go into the cloud, and therefore you can access it from your phone or from different machines, or so your cloud can access it. It's not the solution, right? Having it on your local machine. People have been using Obsidian, which is fine, and there's the cloud versions of Obsidian. It's interesting to see that Notion are essentially trying to be this player in the space, right? Where they're like, okay, let's see if we can be the place where everyone has all of their context, which I guess they already have been for the last, 5-10, but they're integrating it with AI so that they can be that moving forward. I think it's interesting what you say about they kind of breaking down those walls in the walled garden, that it kind of opens it up. Mm-hmm. Also, I have not had time to play around with it yet, but I wonder if the way in which Notion describes their pages, I know they have the blocks within their pages. I wonder if that's any more effective than pure HTML, because that gives you the ability to have it just as text, just like you would in Markdown. However, if you want to have a table, if you want to have code snippets in there, you can have that in there, and you kind of have a hybrid between Markdown and HTML. I don't know. I wonder if you use more tokens in terms of interacting with the CLI. Not sure. Something to play around with. But it's something which will be solved in the next year or so, is that there will be a consensus in terms of, okay, where do I keep all of my context? And you'll be like, yeah, these are the big players. These are the main ones. I wonder if that's Notion. Maybe it's something else.
I have seen you build your own dashboards and tools to visualize things that you have somewhere in the cloud or in a Supabase database or somewhere else. Why would you use Notion and potentially pay for Notion if you can build it yourself?
Yeah, good question. I think people talk about this a little bit, and that's that having someone else manage your solution is usually worth $10 a month rather than you managing it all yourself. I have a lot of my context and a lot of my information within Supabase, and it's very nice being able to own that data. Although it's not, I don't host it myself, so do I actually own it or not? Discussion for another day. Having it completely managed on something like Notion, especially if you're a company or you're a business that's, not at the absolute beginning, I can see how it's definitely worth, I don't know what they charge. It's $10 a month. Is it $20 a month? If it does it right, I can see how it's definitely worth that.
Ben, what do you think?
I think that where Notion sits is the closest thing to a Claude Cowork type competitor. Claude Cowork has access to all of your files, but Notion really understands your business, your system, whatever. And their whole kind of movement towards this agents workflow, it seemed pretty powerful. I looked it up while you guys were talking, and I think Notion increased their revenue by 50% year over year from the previous year, right? So people are using these AI features within Notion, and if Notion can even go more into the let's understand everything that's on your computer and put everything into our file system, they have a really good chance of being this almost computer use, like clicky type, clicky type provider of doing work for the consumer, but also for the business, right? Notion does a really good job of kind of towing that line between B2C and B2B. So it's cool. And the developer side, they're kind of trying to tap into that, right? So Anthropic and Claude are coming from the developer side and moving into the B2C world, whereas Notion are kind of going the other.
Yeah, I think that's a really important note there. That we are very much in the echo chamber, as we've talked about. Most people are kind of like aware of AI, but they're not using it to the extent that we are. If all of your company's data is in Notion, you're going to pay an extra $20 a month per seat in order to use all those AI tools. And you're not going to want to migrate over to a native tool that's built with Claude in the background if it's got all of your information. And Notion's AI tools are decent. I haven't used them for a while, but from what I last used, they are decent. Yeah, I haven't really thought the point you put across, Ben, that they potentially could scoop up a lot of the market there by being one click and you've got access to all of this information and all of these AI capabilities right there.
And they could maybe even be they are a CRM, they are a team management software, whatever you want, to-do lists. If you look through the Notion templates, it's insane how 3 years ago people were literally building Notion systems for companies to track all their operations and everything. I hired a Notion consultant, I think 2-3 years ago, to build a super complex operation system for our marketing team and other teams to get that sorted there. We ended up not using it because that was the negative for in my opinion of Notion. It has so many functionalities that it had too much functionalities in there, and then I much rather use a specific CRM tool for CRM, and then Notion has the public knowledge base, for example. But they have everything in there indeed, and then if the AI actually gets better, you can create this for me. Why would someone go and vibe code a dashboard somewhere else if you can just vibe code it in Notion and have it all there? For me, this update comes 2 weeks late or a month late, because I literally migrated everything off Notion and everything off my Apple Notes into MD files. So now everything is in my personal knowledge system, and I don't think I will bring it back into Notion. But we were talking about paying for a stack and self-hosting things, and it reminded me of this tweet I saw from Peter Levels, where I was extremely surprised when I saw this, seeing how much he spends to have all his projects or websites running. One Notion subscription costs more than what he spends on a monthly basis to run a startup or startups that probably generate about $1 million a month. Which I'm like, how does he do this? I want to learn this. I sent this to my agent, to Claude, how can I actually host my stuff this way? And it says it's going to take quite some management and everything. But Matt, you're the most technical here on the call. What do you think?
Yeah,
are we paying too much for tools?
When I see this, I was also surprised when I saw this, because I saw this and there's more in his stack, right? That's not all of his traffic to all of his tools, is it?
Yeah. He talked about the email.
Yeah.
Was his biggest one, and he just moved over from something to
Cloud.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was Resend is a wrapper on another service, and that's not the best and also more expensive, while you could do the same with a Cloudflare worker resending emails or something.
What I think about this, to be honest, is the majority of the market are the bigger players. That's where the majority of the spend is. And bigger players, if it's really worth it, they don't care whether they're paying $5 a month or $20 a month. If they're getting a good return, it all evens out to exactly the same. I think for indie hackers, people are doing their own thing. It's cool, and I'm falling in love with open source software and self-hosting and everything like that. But the actual return on time and return on effort and what you were talking about in terms of migration, Rik, if you can pay $20 a month per seat to just keep using Notion, it's a no-brainer. That's what you do. You don't worry about saving $500 a month across your team of like 40 people if you're running an actual business that's solving real problems and making real money.
Yeah. Not true. This is the scrappy solopreneur.
It's a real market.
It is
the businesses that are running, the SMBs sort of thing, they don't care about that really. They're just like, what's going to work? What's easy for us? We don't want our like tech team spending a week setting this up and then it breaking and then all that sort of shit.
But then if you think about it, like $20 on Notion, $20 on Google, Gemini, whatever suite, maybe another subscription here and there, like then suddenly each employee is going to like start costing you quite a lot of money on top of a salary as a startup.
What I think about this is that at the moment, a lot of people aren't making their AI subscriptions pay for themselves. A lot of people are just playing around with AI, and because it's so cool and it's so novel, they'll be like, oh, look what I can do. This is totally worth it. But how many people are actually like getting a good ROI on it? A lot of people aren't getting good ROI on it. Otherwise, they would be saying, great, let me max out the Claude plan because I know for every $20 I spend with Claude, $1,000 back in terms of my time. So I think the real like gap here is people actually using AI to produce more revenue or to save money within their business. I think at the moment, everything's so new, everything's so interesting that people are just like messing around with it, which is great. Like that's definitely me too. There is definitely a disconnect between what you're paying in terms of usage and like the revenue or the cost savings that it's having.
My only thing on this is that when I look at this list, on the surface, it looks incredibly overwhelming. And I would say, no, there's no possible way that I could kind of do it the way Levels does and really get to the root and be able to implement it. But if you screenshot it like you did, Rik, and you put it into Claude Code and you have it be able to, move everything over, that migration process is infinitely better than it was just a couple of years ago, right? And there are levels to the Levels kind of, he's on one side where he will scrap everything and he will literally go to the bare metal and just try to subscribe at that level. On my end, I just moved from ConvertKit to Resend, and I went from, I think I was spending $200 a month, and now I'm spending $40. So it's interesting to kind of see, though, as these models are getting better, they are abstracting away a lot of the technical hurdles that you would need to be able to implement this. Probably a few years ago, only a few people could do what Peter is doing, but now if someone did want to get that scrappy, most people could actually implement something like this.
Screenshotting this for me already helped me improve some of my things in terms of data or CPU usage on Vercel, for example, to cut that down by 70%. Just by taking some of the just asking how can I learn from this, and I didn't implement this stack, but I learned some things that I actually did wrong. But I can only recommend people to take a screenshot and ask how you can improve your own setups. You might not migrate fully to a stack like he proposes, but you might be able to save 50 to 70% on certain things. For me, it was putting Cloudflare in between my Vercel, so having all the heavy image rendering done through Cloudflare, for example, and then I can stay on the free version of Vercel for one of the tools.
Yep.
Anyway, it was a little bit of a detour, but a very interesting
Just
one.
to add on this, I don't know if anyone will find it interesting, but I found it super interesting. I'm not super technical, but what I wanted to set up this week was rendering videos on a VPS that I have with Hetzner. And previously, I would have had to go into Grok or Gemini and be walk me through what I need to do to install fast API so I can connect to my Hetzner server via an API so I can call it from Claude or something. And it would be a little bit technical, we're going back and forth, but then realizing that I can just install, I've actually been using OpenCode, but a lot of people would use Claude Code, install it on the VPS, and then just say to the VPS, hey, can you set this up and set this up and set that up? And it does it on the VPS. I found that as a bit of a breakthrough in terms of okay, all of this stuff here becomes way more simple. If you could just take that list, go into your VPS and be okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. Please set it up with this accessibility. It's not an advancement. It's just one thing that clicked for me when I saw a post on X. I was oh, yeah, that makes infrastructure
also
much
from Levels,
easier.
I think, right? He's been pushing this.
He has been connecting someone else as well. I think you even commented on it, Rik, and then we were talking about it over this last week, right?
Yeah, Andre Coronier, he tweeted this as well. I think he commented on Levels' post of like how Levels has his Claude Code running on his VPS, and then people are saying, wow, you trust Claude way more than you should. And then suddenly the movement of have your agents running on your VPS became a thing. And I couldn't understand it either in the beginning, but it does make sense.
Yeah, I think people who are more technical will be like, okay, there's a lot of security risk there in terms of just letting the agents set up your entire VPS.
But is it really? It's way easier if it just all stays in one place. The VPS is a hard drive anyway. Yeah. We'll stay on the video editing side because HeyGen is now built into Codex. One click and you can start video editing. Like we discussed that Codex is becoming the everything app, but then there's also people like Matt building their own video editors to find a solution for video editing. Who's going to get there first? Who's going to get first to building the video editor that actually works? I wonder. I haven't used this yet, and I still prefer using the workflows that I'm used to on video editing because I've wasted way too much time trying stuff, never really getting there, and then wasted tokens and time versus like spending 3 hours trying to make something versus would take me 3 hours to do it myself. Matt, you have actually used AI to create your YouTube videos, right?
Indeed. Second what you said. I have had to partition my time between doing my work and building the systems to help me do my work. And I think that anyone that's semi-technical can see the same sort of thing, that sometimes you get addicted to building the systems rather than using the systems that work to do the work, which then gets you paid or which helps people. So I've now moved to a system where like any change that I want to make, I'll write down in my notes, and then there's a certain amount of time every day or every week where I can make those changes to the system. Because I have been using AI a lot to edit videos. You cannot edit an entire video. I mean, unless you just want to add subtitles and get rid of ums and ers. If you want to add in like proper motion graphics throughout, AI can do it. You do need to hold its hand all the way through at the moment. That is 100% going to improve. But yeah, it's very easy to get carried away, not just in video editing, but in anything, building the system rather than actually doing the work, which gets you paid, which helps people, whatever.
Like many startups, how they start is solve a problem for yourself and then productize it. And I think like that's the right route, right? So, but it's, I guess, good that you're finding a good middle ground in terms of not focusing too much of that. But I've never heard someone succeed in building $1 billion startup if they didn't really go all into building that thing. So it's like, what do you actually want?
Exactly. I mean, I'm not committing myself entirely. Well, I'm not committing myself at all to building this next-gen AI video editor. But yeah, if you would, then that would be all you do. Is just tinker on that all day.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think the way that Riley describes it here, that the next-gen video editor is not going to be a standalone video editor like Descript, but it's going to be a video editor that can be plugged into Codex, Claude Code, or Cursor? Like, is that the next generation of tools?
Yeah, that's the bit which I don't understand what he's saying, and I don't understand why he said that, to be honest. And then I think later...
They're kind of like HeyGen, I guess. Isn't HeyGen and Remotion similar like this? They're like, you can use it in Claude Code, and same with Codex, I guess, maybe with Cursor, if they all have built-in prefix
They're like
stuff.
open source frameworks which Claude or Cursor make use of, but it's not like a plug-in. It was interesting what he says further down in that post about that it's still manual, or it's still going to be a manual editor. I think this is the hardest problem to solve actually within this is, well, maybe not the hardest, but one of the hardest is just finding out what the right workflow is for all of the different things that you can edit. Like, how are you starting? Are you starting by feeding in raw video, getting rid of all of the ums and ers, and then going through and like creating all the ideas that you want for like the different scenes, and then it builds it? Or are you starting from scratch, that it's something you're building it rather than by thinking about it?
I can share you my workflow if that is any value.
Let's talk about it.
So it's gonna need a lot of iterations and changes and all of these to get to a product that actually is going to be used.
As far as the HeyGen and all of these things working within Codex and Claude Code, I think that the UI needs to expand beyond just a chatbot, right? multimedia, which is what video editing is all about. Like, you need to be able to see the video and you need to then be able to give feedback. A chatbot today doesn't even let you be able to see the video and play it in the chat. So I don't see how that would be possible. Even if you had the best models in the world, the actual UI of Codex or Claude Code don't even support videos, right? In that chat, and it for sure doesn't work in the terminal. We need to expand beyond Codex and Claude Code just being a chatbot for that world to exist.
Have you used Remotion Studio or Hyperframe Studio?
I'm using it right this second. Yeah, I have it edit a lot of my like UGC videos. Yeah, I love Remotion.
It's good. And I think like having an AI chatbot within the actual studio itself, so you can like reference in the same way that like you can in like Cursor, you can select an element and say, oh yeah, this bit, make the text smaller or whatever. Having that level of integration is where it needs to be. And also like having a slide out bar with all of your like pre-made assets that you can say, hey, use this, so you don't have to prompt it from start again, and therefore it doesn't mess something up. I think it's the little things like that, which aren't technically that to implement. It's just a usability in terms of like, what's the workflow? What's the problem? How do you solve it? How do you make it easy to use? How do you make sure that humans can do the things which humans do much better and quicker than AI, but AI fills in those gaps? That's the really interesting part, because we're not limited by technology. We're limited kind of by, like, how do you best solve this problem? How are people using it? Where do things need to be? That's what I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of related to this new announcement of Google with their new AI book, where, let me find it. Google announced Google Book, the first laptop designed for Google or Gemini intelligence. What's kind of groundbreaking here is that they're reinventing the cursor. It's combining the cursor with talking, and the cursor is in an area, and you can then say this and that and this and that, and it then puts these inputs into an agent. Maybe that's the next way of using the computer, because the cursor has been how old? 30 years old now?
The one takeaway that I saw from that, which I thought was cool, was this concept of using the cursor, and whenever you need help, you just shake the mouse. At an ethereal level, when you're frustrated, when you need help, you like that would be your kind of motion. And someone definitely thought about that, and it's pretty genius to kind of see that play out into here. I think it really comes down to, Gemini's models are some of the smallest ones. They just came out with like a Gemma 4, which is like a lightweight model that they can probably run on the device. And that might make this super powerful, where you have the assistant that's not like calling to a server in a data center and then waiting for that response. You probably need an AI first laptop where all of the assistance is happening right there. And they were probably waiting for like a Gemma model to come out and then they could release it. How well it actually ends up being in like the first iteration, I think usually these products, the second version of the product is where it kind of, they worked out the kinks and they've iterated upon it. But I think it's an amazing step towards moving AI first technologies into the actual hardware.
Yeah, when I saw this, that's what I hoped it was. It's not, right? They haven't like squeezed a little TPU that can actually run decent models into this. It's just like a software layer, which is probably inferring on the cloud somewhere. Is that right?
Is that? Yeah.
Talking about inferring on the cloud, I mean, they also just announced that they, just as well as Anthropic last week, now Google is in talks with Elon SpaceX to launch data centers in space. So maybe it can just inferring it in space, right? It's like this triology, this growing triology is like getting very strong and big. Google, SpaceX, and Anthropic all together, collaborating, getting stuff into space. Who knows? Maybe it's the end of Apple, and Google is also becoming the hardware provider of the future.
I'm not sure I'm going to bet against Apple quite yet. But what we were talking about, what Ben you were just talking about a minute ago, it reminded me of something I think called Clicky. I think that's what it's called. Maybe you guys have talked about this before. Have you talked about it before here?
No, we
Rik,
haven't.
I don't know if you can find.
I keep thinking about it.
It's interesting.
He's a really good.
I'm a massive proponent of like education and AI in terms of how you can educate yourself with AI. And this makes so much sense in terms of this just being implemented across the board for essentially how you do anything, how you want to learn anything if you're not sure about anything whilst using a device, it seems like the solution. Is this it here?
Hey everyone, so this is the new version of Clicky.
Yeah, this is it.
It's the simplest interface in the world for you to interact with the models and actually spawn agents. So check this out. I literally just be here on my computer and I can agent, can you clean up these screenshots on my, it's just looking really cluttered. This is a really simple use case. You can see Clicky of himself and went off to actually spawn an agent to go do that work, which is in my desktop. And what's cool is I can also hover this thing. I can see what it's doing. And I had just spawned an agent with just my voice. And just like that, it cleaned up my desktop. So another one, which is really cool, which is that Clicky agent, can you set a reminder for tomorrow at 9 p.m. to get dinner with Sharif at Pakwan? And that's it. And it's going to go off. And it's going to actually go in the background, interact with my native Mac apps, and just go do that task for me. I want to show you some other examples here. But this is one that's really cool.
Which I think
this is my landing page,
more
right?
interesting.
I can do something.
Maybe this is it here.
This is one example of where Clicky can do real work for you in a meaningful way. Hey, Clicky agent, this is my landing page. You can see it. Can you find Instagram influencers for me that are under 50,000 followers? Research the best influencers for my niche. And I want to find people that are like not super famous, not because I don't have that much money. So go and find these people and create a CSV of like 5 people that I could reach out to. And maybe tell me, have an example DM I could send them as well, so they can promote my products. And just like that, Clicky agent's going to go spawn to do that and actually research people across the web that could be market my product for me. And I'll do one more crazy one because this is also really exciting. Because Clicky is an agent that actually runs
I know, I noticed that.
That
too.
means that also build software. So I can say something like, build a Mac
he's
app
the one
for me
actually
that can
moving the
control
mouse.
my local Spotify. I'm trying to build like a control of my Spotify with a play button. Shows
Yeah,
the
there's
song
two
names,
interesting
all
things
that.
I've got to say about
Please
this.
make that Mac.
So yeah, what I've found more interesting is not actually these parts that he's saying, because it's very close to like co-work. Like it's cool, it's not revolutionary. But the things that I've seen before is where he's in, I think the one was, he was in like Premiere Pro or like an editing software. And he was like, hey, Clicky, how do I rotoscope and like cut this person out from the background so that like they're separate? And it says, oh, all you got to do is press this button, then this button, and then this button. So that like Googling becomes a thing of the past. It is right there and telling you how you could do certain things. And also, I believe it's open source.
I'm on their website right now. You can join the waitlist, but I don't think that this project is open source.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. I remember seeing it like a month ago and seeing it was open source. I've been getting heavily into open source software and forking bits of open source software and changing it how I like. And if it is, then yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I think that's the next level. If it is open source, even if it's not open source, people will just clone it because it's a great idea.
It's gonna come one.
And like, I think that's the next level of teaching people how to use your software and just having like a helper. So out of there, it's now just like a right click and being like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah, it's the Clippy.
Yeah.
It's Clippy,
Yeah.
right? That's why they must have the name Clicky. They're like, this is the Clippy that actually works. This is the Clippy of the
Yeah.
future. Yeah.
It is. It's incredible.
But there's a wait list, but it's open source. Or are they using open source models? Is that
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've only fully understood the power of open source and being like, this is incredible that people are giving this away for free. But I mean, like, it is a business model, right? Like, I don't know anything about that business model, but like N8N, for example, like they make a shit ton of money, yet they're still open source.
So the initial version of Clicky is open source. That's the other strategy, right? Is you make the first version open source, you learn about how people will use it, and then the future versions, I mean, that's what OpenAI did, right? GPT-1, 2.
That's what Remotion does as well. They hooks you in, and then if you want an actual like editor, where, as you were saying, Ben, you can actually like move things programmatically. They're like, oh yeah, it's $600, and you're like, oh, it's going to take a lot of time for me to build those myself.
It's been like this since the It's been like this since the early days of video editors. DaVinci Resolve still has this this strategy, right? You can use it until a certain things that you can do within the app, and if you want to do a little bit more, you gotta pay that one time $300. But like, it's still a good deal compared to Premiere Pro, to be honest. Like within a year, you've earned back your investment, or you're like, but yeah, that's a pricing strategy. Last topic of the day is the boys have been having a party in China. And I would have loved to be on that table, to be honest. Like, imagine being on that flight. Imagine having a beer with Tim Apple and and Mr. Elon and Mr. Trump and Mr. China as well. Like, I didn't know Tim Apple smoked, by the way, but this would have been so fun to just have a cigarette and a beer with the boys. What do you think has been discussed at this table and in the airplane?
I'm not sure, but I think you got another post where it talked about all of the people that were on like Air Force One flight. Yeah, there you go, flying over to China. I so hope it was like a stag party or a bachelor party where they all had like made T-shirts with like funny like nicknames for each other and just like handed them out. But it's a wild collection
an impressive
of people.
List of people.
I don't really go too much into politics, but I think cooperation is better. No cooperation, eh?
Definitely, yeah. It's interesting to see that all these people get together, go to a summit in China, and that Trump invites those people and brings them on, right? I was very surprised just to see all of this. Also, if that plane crashes. But I think they were divided. They were not all on the same plane. Apparently, it was only Elon, Jensen, and Trump on the real Air Force One, and the rest were on other planes. So if the main one crashed, still 9 people left to run the world.
Did you guys see the people trying to take selfies with Elon?
Yes, I have it ready here. Elon in meme mode. So fun.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And he was just memeing all of them.
He's totally just making all these faces.
Like the most fun autistic billionaire in the world, huh?
It's so nice that the world's richest guy had like. In some cases, just doesn't give a fuck, eh? It's just like, whatever.
He doesn't care.
I think the CEO or founder of Xiaomi wanted a selfie, and then he looks at the selfie and
squints
then
his
right
eye.
Like,
exactly.
bored of it. Fucking legend. He's so good. Also, did you see the tweet of Trump? The tweet of Trump calling Tim Apple.
Oh, that was ages ago, eh?
Like,
He
Trump
leaned in.
No, this is on the flight.
No.
Like, I am right now on the plane with Tim Apple and with the legend, the man himself, Jensen Wang, and Tim Apple.
Not just like naming himself, because I think in his first like presidency, he legit called it Tim Apple, and everyone was like, "What the fuck? Like, what?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
And now he just kind of he played on it. He's like, yeah, now that's your name. Your name is now Tim Apple.
But I would argue that Trump calling Tim Cook Tim Apple actually like increased the people knowing about Tim Cook or Tim Apple.
Exactly.
Because otherwise,
Totally.
like, who the fuck is Tim Cook, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the next trend. Maybe you're like Rik Mode Pod.
Yeah.
What are you, Matt Applied
Exactly.
AI?
Yeah, rolls off the tongue.
We do have one more meme of the
Go on.
week. Let's go. So apparently, if you're selling stuff on eBay, this is the way to do it. Matt, if you want to sell your Pokemon cards, this is the way. Maybe you should dress up in a panty. And then...
Yeah, maybe.
and then pose on eBay.
Oh, there's Pokemon cards. Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, that's marketing for you. That's, I mean, however far AI gets, you can never get away from the organic human day.
Yeah, exactly.
Know your audience.
Keep the content organic. That's the way. Well, this was a great episode. I am the greatest moderator with 2 amazing guests today. Hopefully, we reach the highs that we did last week and higher. Up only from here. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye,
Adios.
bye, bye.